Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000!
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there.
Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a fire in my labor! Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man!
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, airing on Phoenix 92.5 FM and all those other wonderful places on the internet like YouTube and Spotify, and of course our own website. I'm Cian, and with me once again is Kev. Kev, how you doing?
I am doing very well, Cian. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm getting into the spooky season spirit and fighting back Christmas with every inch of energy in me.
I walked down one of the little spatula aisles, and it just almost hearing Mariah Carey in the back of the wind. I just saw, like, hidden away, they started putting up the Christmas the Christmas tins. It's behind all the multi-packs of Twix bars for Halloween, but they're there. They're creeping like a fungal infestation.
Making Christmas. Because like it's funny. I always see the memes of like, Mariah Carey All I Want for Christmas spells doom. But you and I were in the trenches in a shop where we weren't allowed to have Mariah Carey.
What I would have given for Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey is like an oasis in the desert for where we were working.
Drinking. I know, like, let me tell you, there is no grimmer fate than royalty-free Christmas music. I think I swear one was like a dark wave synth song. Like Marilyn Manson probably wrote it. And this is a Christmas song. It was just bonkers stuff altogether. Like they will put anything on a playlist.
That's just it. And the weird thing is that despite them being the free ones, I know this is off topic, but despite this being the free ones, they're actually really hard to find. There was a song you used to sing called Icy Christmas, where you turned into Icy Krampus in your eyes. I have tried so hard to find it. There a full playlist of 2 hour songs. Haven't only found one ever. And it was off an album called Not Your Grandpa's Christmas Songs, which I could not track down a physical copy. It's really weird. I would love to know where all of these license-free Christmas songs come from, because they're not readily available.
No, these are things not meant to be like sold commercially. They are made for like one single payment to be put on this playlist and this playlist alone, and that's it. There is no way any of these people are getting royalties.
Whoa.
Well, actually, no. What am I saying? It's literally in the name, royalty free.
Oh my God. So yes, my heart goes out to all the retail people at the moment for whom Christmas is beginning. Personally, I liked working in a shop at Christmas, but I will fully admit it was a war zone. So defer it for as long as humanly possible.
Well, if you're working in the trenches of Christmas, or if you're living the high life, beyond the nexus like me and Cian, regardless, you are in a part of the workforce. There is one thing that you will need above all else, and that is an alarm clock. And here's the thing, Cian. Have I got just the alarm clock for you?
Oh, my Christmas has come early. Right. We have been... Because usually we kind of brainstorm up our topics before, kind of about 20 minutes before we start recording. We have been chatting about this for like a week. Do you want to tell the good listeners about the most exciting thing you're going to get for Christmas?
Well, here's the thing. Nintendo we know that they are producing a new console within the next like 6 to 8 months. It's outwardly been said we will have a Nintendo Switch 2 before the next fiscal year. And so when I see a Nintendo video crop up on my YouTube announcing a new piece of hardware, my heart is a flutter. I think, well, what delights and splendors does the Nintendo Switch 2 good for us? But no, instead we get the Nintendo Alarmo. Which is it's absurd. This thing is it's a Nintendo alarm clock, which on its face you think, okay, well, a licensed alarm clock, what's the big deal? No, this is a Nintendo alarm clock that tracks your movement, and you do not touch it.
Okay, I feel like some details are getting lost in translation here. Why does it have this feature?
Because Nintendo can't do things straight. Everything has to be the most buck wild idea out there. The whole premise of this alarm clock is that, like, because it is fully Nintendo themed. Like, it has various different like themes and displays you can have, from like, Mario to Pikmin to Zelda to I think they haven't put out an Animal Crossing one, but I think they're releasing an Animal Crossing one. And
You'd
that
think
includes,
that'd be the obvious one to go to apart from Mario, like, yeah.
And like, that counts up like from the heads up display, the alarm music. One funny feature is that as your alarm goes off, it tracks your movements, and any move you make, the alarm clock will respond in kind with sound. So as you roll in bed to jump up Superstar from Mario Odyssey, coins will plink as you kind of roll and toss and turn, because you woke up and it's 7 in the goddamn morning. And as you do not touch the alarm, turn it off. To turn it off, you have to get out of bed. Again, this alarm clock tracks your movement.
Okay. So far, I'll be honest, none of this sounds appealing. It all sounds terrifying. So my question is, who is this for?
Children. Genuine. Like, I look at it like I don't mean to sound reductive, but it kind of, like, the novelty is just kind of past that point. Now, listen, I know I'm speaking to you as a parent of 2 children. I'm not saying this is for the parents. In fact, I think that this will be awful for parents.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If you say, here's a toy for your kids, it tracks their movement, I would say no and stop talking to me. Not shut up and take my money.
Shut up and take my $100 that this alarm
I mean, to be honest, you'd have lost me at $100 and it's noisy. Adding in the tracking feature is like, oh my God, I will never shop in your like company again type stuff.
I'm sorry. Lest I forget the pièce de résistance of all this. It is $100, and to use the alarm clock, you must have an active Nintendo Switch Online account.
So what happens if you don't?
I don't know.
Does it just not turn on?
It's just you can't log into your alarm clock.
Who needs to log into a frickin' alarm clock?
Kian, this is the future, and you need to get with the times.
It buzzes, and you throw it at the wall. We have had this for like 100 years. Like, okay, the Lego Mario app I get, because you get to build your own tracks, and that requires an app. Yeah, that's all kind. Like, an alarm clock is so simple. It either has only one button or none buttons. You do not need to sign into this thing.
Yeah, no, this is, again, this feels like, because Nintendo have always kind of been like the king of like kitsch. Like, most everything they have done has been like novel in a way that is more creative than like their predecessors. You need only look at the Wii for that. When everyone was striving for HD, they were like, here is a console that only focuses on motion controls. Also, it looks far worse than any competitor on the market. And it sold millions.
Oh yeah, because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I don't know anyone who has ever cared about more powerful graphics. Graphics from like Assassin's Creed 1 and modern look the same to me. I could not care less. It doesn't matter how pretty your game is. If your character runs into a wall and there's no save points, I will hate it. So yes, I think Nintendo has been leading the market in innovation in that respect. But still, everything you say about this alarm clock, I mean, I know we're always quoting The Simpsons, like, but all I see is Herb Powell's car spinning around. Like, do you remember that episode with Homer's brother?
The Homer, yeah.
Yeah, that is this. This monstrosity cost $82,000, and no one, I mean, I'm sure someone will buy it, but I would have to imagine that a significant portion of the market for this will be buying it, at least somewhat ironically.
I think this is going to be one of these things where people will buy it and it will sit turned off on a shelf, nice to look at.
That's it. Yeah, like I've got a little shelf in front of me of like presents and Lego sets that haven't been opened and stuff. But then again, I wouldn't pay £100 for something and let it sit in a box, you know?
No, like I think that's the thing with Nintendo. You're gonna again in the strive for innovation and creativity, you're gonna have some clunkers.
Like, I mean, look, devil's advocate for me. Why would you want this?
I don't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to really just sweep the knee on this one. I don't. And that's aside. And that's aside from the fact that it doesn't function unless it only functions with one person in the bed. If you have another
What?
person or because it's motion tracking. If there's a second moving body in the bed, it can't track that.
I mean, I didn't want it tracking me in the first place, but if it's going to track me, do it properly.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. They have built a clock, which presumably, if my Nintendo account goes one day over its annual, I guess I'll just sleep in and miss work that day. And it only works if I'm single with £100, but also have children because that's the market for it. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, exactly. Precisely.
I kind of consider myself to be like a contrarian sometimes. I like to look at things from like a few different angles. I don't like when everyone like dog piles on like one thing. But like
What an idea is flawed from the
speechless.
concept.
I mean, look, alarm clocks are so simple. They run on gears. Like logging into it does not make it a superior item. It makes it more of a hassle.
I don't know. Yeah, like if you could play video games on it, then maybe it had something. But it is, yeah, no.
Well, that'd
It
be a
is
thing now. Maybe if, like, let's say it was linked to your Nintendo Switch, and maybe, depending on the game you were playing last, the alarm clock changed its alarm sound or something. That'd be nice. I don't want it tracking my movement.
the alarm clock. The alarmo sees you, Keaton. The alarmo watches you while you sleep.
And let me make it clear, I love inventive alarm clocks. Like I've seen like crowdfunded ones where like if you hit the snooze button, a fiver goes to charity, or like a little one with spider legs that when you hit the snooze button, it walks off and hides itself. That kind of stuff's cool. This is freaky. I don't like it. Keep it away from me.
Well, Keaton, I hate to say it.
Don't dislike many things.
Well, Keaton, I
I've
hate
been
to say it.
heckled on this podcast for not disliking enough things.
Well, you're gonna be real upset when I have custom ordered 5 directly to your house. So,
Good, they can track each other in the bin.
in the meantime, Keaton, you have been raving about a show on Netflix recently that's back in the news.
Good, let's keep the misery train coming, shall we? Yeah, no,
Keaton,
Yeah.
I got
Well,
Kean. I got horror games later on the line. The tone's not getting better.
okay. Speaking of completely bizarre business models, I have been trying to talk about the show Chaos on this podcast for the last few weeks, and I've kept missing the window because I consider you more of a Greek like history aficionado more than me. I thought you might catch it at some point, or Dara might pop in and review it without watching it, one or the other. So I was looking forward to talking about Chaos, which I'm sure people kind of know about it by now. It's basically the Greek stories of Zeus and all that adapted into a vaguely modern society. And Netflix have cancelled it. It's been out 3 weeks, number one in its charts, gone. Why?
That's the Netflix model. Unless like it's a recognizable brand, there's no sustainability. They will pump so many millions of dollars into a project, and they can't like, given Netflix's just business model, it can almost never make that back unless it is the biggest show on the planet.
But like, I don't know much about TV, but surely, apart from like actors' wages going up, like surely making a first season is the most expensive season to make because of all the planning and pre-production, building sets, establishing the visual style, booking in actors who famous ones who probably die off after one season, and then your core cast of like new up and comers take the reins, like Game of Thrones. Like it's I liked this show. It wasn't amazing, but it was good. And it was compelling and it had good actors and visually it was gorgeous. The the whole story is you're gonna know this better than me. Uh you know the whole legend of Orpheus, and would you know the name of
Yes.
Orpheus's wife off the top of your head?
Yeah, Eurydice.
Yes, thank you. The whole thing is basically structured around her, and in the first episode, she's kind of thinking of breaking up with Orpheus, who's this like dim-witted pop star. And then before she gets a chance, she dies in a car crash. This is all the first episode. I'm not going to give away too much since we only have 8 of them now. Be ashamed to spoil them. And then basically the entire Orpheus story plays out along at the same time that Zeus is getting increasingly paranoid, as played by Jeff Goldblum, and him and his brothers, Hades and Poseidon, are all just freaking out that people are losing faith in them, so they're doing all these mad things and hurting people. And it's a good take. I'd be interested to know if someone who didn't know the Greek stories would enjoy it, but it's really well executed. Like all the underworld stuff is shot in this really nice, dense black and white. That gives it a real nice quality to it. Everything is like modern. Like the underworld is just like really bad hotel rooms, like that kind of like hostel setup. And
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the question I have is because I like interpretations of Greek mythology are, especially I think recently have become much more widespread, but are becoming to an extent an oversaturated market. Um, so like, because we have the likes of like Percy Jackson, American Gods, like
don't
just
forget
mentioning
Hadestown as well if you're into your
that's
musicals.
exactly what I was going to say with the mention of the Orpheus and Eurydice myths. And then, on the gaming side, you have things like Hades. So, like, it is such a kind of a prevalent thing right now. It's kind of part of the reason I didn't check it out initially. It's like, aside from, as I mentioned to you earlier, just there's a constant kind like, this has been a kind of a pretty constant media time of year. There's so much coming out. It just flew right under my radar. But part of that was because even though I love classical Greek mythology, I'm quite a fan of it. It just kind of nothing about it grabbed me in that way of like, well, here's a different spin on that. In that market, does it stand out significantly?
Well, I studied Greek theater in college. I don't actively go out of my way to look up kind of Greek stories and stuff. But like this one, I looked it up before and started watching it before I knew what it was. Like I just had people I work with kind of recommend it to me, and I saw it like I work in a lot of schools, and in some of the schools I work in, they have a whiteboard in the staff room where it's just like write up a TV show you're watching at the moment and recommend. And I saw Chaos up in two different schools. So it's like, okay, all right, I'll give this a go. And it felt like it was getting that very steady word of mouth around thing, where it was in that sweet
Hmm.
spot where you got the buzz that people were enjoying it, but you didn't have big things like spoiled, like Stranger Things season one. People were talking about that, but they weren't saying this happens in episode six, this happens in episode five, all that kind of stuff. Squid Game, maybe that was another example. Kind of people were giving away the secrets, but like there was a
Yeah,
buzz around
like
it.
in comparison, I think even though I have been watching it the day it's been coming out,
Mm.
I still had not managed to have stuff from Agatha all along spoiled for me within 3 hours of that going up. People are
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
that show, but that's to the point of too much. Like
Mm.
people are throwing information at you on that one. So this is kind of hitting that sweet spot where people are talking about it, but not just bombarding you with information about it.
Exactly. And it's not a perfect show, but it's a very interesting show. It's very good.
Hmm.
It's got a real cinematic quality to it, and the acting's all top notch. It's really interesting the way they interpret all of these sort of iconic like Greek legend things. Like the competition for Orpheus to go to the underworld. Like he goes to like this dive bar in the middle of nowhere with again, I'm having even though I've watched the show, I'm deferring to you like one of Zeus's kind of slightly rubbish sons. And like the
You could be truly, there are so many.
well, that is actually an ingredient in the show. Is Hera is Zeus's wife, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Hera has basically banned him from having more children because he has too many. Uh, and now he's feeling lonely, and he's like caught. He just have this like really sad sequence in episode two where he's like calling up the likes of Hercules and Ares and all them, and just getting through to their voicemail, and he's like feeling very neglected. And there's oh my God, I won't say it, but there's like a horrifying sequence where like he catches one of his many girlfriends like pregnant, and she's like turning them all into butterflies and bumblebees and all this kind of stuff. So it's like it gets across kind of the iconography very well. But even if you're familiar with it, there's still kind of new creative spins on it. Like to go back to what I was saying there, like the Fates, the three Fates, or pot no the because I mix up the Fates and the Furies. They're all like judges on this like kind of like dive bar talent competition. And they have three people going up against each other with like they give them like mannequins and it's like okay, prove how much you love your dead relative, whatever. Take this marker, identify all the moles on their body or something like that. Like it's it's got a really weird, twisted sense of humor to it, but it doesn't go so far that it's not grounded in sort of an emotional reality. It's a very nice balancing act. And I think there's room to improve, but I wanted to see more from it. It was very, very confident from the get-go.
Mm.
And for something which has like, Jeff Goldblum leading, you sort of think, oh, okay, it's going to be wobbly for an episode two, it'll settle into itself. No, it was pretty damn good from the get-go. So I'm really surprised as to why they've suddenly dropped this like a hot potato, you know?
Okay. No, you know what? You're kind of selling me on it.
Yeah, like I
Then I
said, it's
think my
not perfect, but it's really interesting.
mm,
It's like you put compare that to like the Netflix Sandman, which is another one of those things that everyone loved and they probably won't renew again at this rate or something like that. I know they've said they're casting, but I don't trust them. Like with Sandman, I think it took about half a season for it to like settle into itself. With this, it was pretty confident about what it was straight from the get-go. And it's been a while since I've seen a show where it's got its stuff together straight away. And I think it's a real shame that we won't get to see it grow and change. And my question is, if you're going to keep doing this, why not just do a mini series? Like since we're going to go on to Halloween stuff later, like The Haunting of Hill House, if you're not interested in sequel series, why are you doing these things and then canceling them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't speak to Netflix's business practices. If I could, I wouldn't be on this podcast and I'd be making far more money. But like, it's I think what it's going to result in is a lot of creatives kind of aiming creatively shooting towards more of a limited series like vibe. Because if you get a TV show for Netflix, you're not going to be guaranteed that second season. So you have to like, if you have an idea, you're like, well, I have to kind of wrap it up in this one season, or I probably won't get an ending.
But
And
if
I
you
get
don't
a
put
second
like a
season,
sequel tease, then you might not get a second season either. Like, you know?
yeah. But that's kind of the gambling of it. And again, but like the odds are kind of stacked against your favor unless you like spin that wheel and hit a Bridgerton. It's like you kind of have to. I think a lot of people are probably going to aim for that. Well, here's the definitive ending, and if we get a second season, we'll figure it out from there.
But Bridgerton's a good example because I watched that, and that first season, you could have very reasonably either ended it there or brought back a second season with completely different cast of characters. So, like, there is a way to do this. They're just not. And I find that bizarre, you know? Why grab an audience and then annoy them away? Like,
yeah, no, it's money men looking for return on investment, kind of out of thin air.
But we talked about this on the last episode about comparing the costs of The Acolyte to Agatha All Along and all that stuff. How do you make a return on a streaming platform when the subscription, in theory, covers everything on the platform? Is it just clicks? And how do clicks translate to costs of an already finished production? Like, I'm not a financial person, but the model doesn't make sense to me at all.
No, and like the real answer is it is kind of unsustainable. Like, and especially like with like as we're doing this coming out of like the golden era of television with your Breaking Bad and your Sopranos, where a TV show has to be a set of like 8 movies. No, it's the bottom will fall out of this eventually. Like that's an inevitability. That's not a prediction.
Yeah, because like
I think this is kind of the result.
1899 cancelled before it even came out? Like, why put all this money into something and then torpedo its appeal? Like, I don't like the Batwoman situation, but at least I understand that situation, as cynical as it is. Why do this? Why spend this money to build this audience and then annoy them and drive them away? What kind, like, you didn't even need to cancel it necessarily. You could have just not released a second season and had people wondering and keep subscribing for ages and ages. Like, what sense does this all make?
It doesn't, and it is simple. Line goes up. Like, that's all this ever is. Like it is reductive, but that kind of, if it's not making if it's not returning your investment by the end of the quarter, the line has to keep going up.
Yes, but that's what I said a second ago. You don't get investments on a streaming service.
And they can figure that out next quarter when the line still has to go up.
Oh.
Yeah, no, grim. It's incredibly grim.
About a clock.
Well, while we're on the topic of grim, it's Halloween!
Ooh.
Go as the spookiest costume. Return on investment. Ooh.
Visualize me waving that little sadness flag from Inside Out 2 that says yay.
This year I go as the Stonks Man.
Oh, I feel like the sad android from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy now. Go on, give me some happy horror stories. Let's hear it. Let's light a fire under this episode.
Well, I have inadvertently been celebrating Halloween all month by playing just a cavalcade of horror games. Not because they were scary, but because they were short. And that's what I've been looking.
It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's short.
Kinda, yeah. I listen. I love me like a solid 100-hour RPG. I do, but sometimes I want a video game that is done in 3 hours, and that's also perfect. And it was. I finished Zelda, which is a delight, by the way. Kind of, I think it falls off in the second half a little, but overall, I stand by everything I said in the last episode. You can go listen to that for my thoughts on Echoes of Wisdom. But it was a game I kind of ticked over for a few weeks. So I was like, okay, I want like short, especially kind of coming into the weekends. I'm busy planning a wedding now, so I don't have time to. I don't have as much time to commit to video games as I like. So I was like, okay, shorter experience, something I can kind of like start in the morning of a Saturday and finish by Sunday evening. Has been kind of like my go-to now the past couple of weeks.
Right.
And just kind of by the nature of them, that has me fallen into horror games. Because horror kind of typically works better in short form like that. It's hard to keep a scare up for more than like 40 hours.
Like even Alien Isolation struggled to sort of sustain tension over like 10 hours or something.
So I've kind of come up with I've managed to kind of come through a cavalcade of them. Starting with probably like one of the pioneers of the genre in Resident Evil.
I must confess, I've never played a Resident Evil game.
Funnily enough, I love this franchise super, super dearly. This is my first time playing the first one.
Okay.
I've only played from like 4 through to like the fourth one, which was back in the GameCube, up until recent, including the remakes of the original games, but never the original games themselves. Because they are blocky and they are kind of blocky and outdated and a bit clunky. Like,
And what device did you play it on, by the way?
Tank controls. I played it on the PS5. Now, I say the original. I played the remake of the first game.
Right.
Which was, I think, because the first game was the PlayStation 1. The remake, I believe, came out in the GameCube. But significantly, completely redid, the graphics from that blocky PS1 era. Gave you the option to move on, full omnidirectional sticks, so you're not locked to tank controls. Added, made the story make a bit more sense. Re-recorded all the dialogue because the original dialogue is pants in the best way. You need only hear Barry Burton say Jill Sandwich.
Or what?
Oh yeah. No, it's camp. It's absolutely camp.
Go on. Have you got any quotes sort of in your head there? I want a reenactment.
It is. Oh no! It is the master of It is the video game voice acting, bad voice acting. This is we're talking the air. This is the game that gave us you almost became a Jill sandwich. And here's a lockpick. It'll help you, the master of unlocking.
Was this a translation issue?
I don't think so.
So did the writer just not meet people ever?
I don't know if there was writing. Honest to goodness, I think some of this is ad-libbed.
This sounds like that Ghost Stories, rubbish anime dub or something. There's something off with this.
That's a whole other side of this. That's a bunch of English voice actors just getting let run wild with a script. That's a different story.
I say this as a director. Don't let actors run wild. It's not good for them, and it's not good for you.
No, but the remake moved that to the side and gave us actual straight down the middle horror voice acting.
Okay.
And again, you take some, you give some with it. It makes the actual dramatic states of Resident Evil hit a bit more home, and also firms up because Resident Evil has kind of over the years developed a lot of kind of lore and backstory. The remake kind of ties it more into that.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, since you've done it back to front. Was there anything about going backwards to Resident Evil 1 that you found surprising, or that was a letdown, or anything like that?
No, I'd actually say it colored my understanding of the rest of the franchise really heavily. It filled in a lot of gaps that I kind of had missing, or had known about but had never properly experienced. Almost every character from that original game crops back up through the franchise in some form or another. So, and I kind of I had a good understanding from kind of where they ended up. So it was good. it was cool to go back and see like where it all came from.
Mm.
Um, so
Because is
that
there, like, again, I haven't played them. Is there a plot that runs through all these games, or is there just a commonality between the monsters or the characters, or like what's the series basically is what I'm asking. What is it?
oh boy, we do not have the time to get in it. Resident Evil kind of gets it is Resident Evil at its fundamental is giant pharmaceutical corporation messed around with things beyond their comprehension, and random citizens and police officers pay the price through zombie outbreak.
Okay,
And
so
that's kind of that's
basically okay.
yeah, no, it is like it's a foundational like kind of zombie like survival horror game.
Yeah.
And then as we go on, we introduce you know, parasitic cults, a man who controls leeches with opera singing, the moldy bayou swamp, and by 8 we have hit vampires and werewolves. Like it spins so wildly out of control. I cannot tell you.
Well, I mean, that is
in a
fairly
succinct
typical
way.
of horrors, I suppose, in fairness. I mean, Freddy versus Jason exists for a reason.
Yeah, but what I will say is I cannot recommend, and frankly, any of the franchise enough. Like, there's a reason I think it is one of my favorites. If you like horror in any way, it's well worth it. And I like rarely is it too scary to enjoy. It kind of always just has like one foot in camp that I think always makes it a blast. And for the most part, you could jump into any game. I'd say just steer clear of 5 and 6, like as a
Why? What's
starting
wrong with
point.
those
But
ones?
they were kind of made in the like PS3 era, where everything was gritty third-person shooter, and they're just not good
Okay.
as those. Pretty much every other game is like some definition of horror and survival horror, or does third-person action way better.
So it was deep into the Call of Duty era, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much any other game is a better jumping off point. But considering I went into it backwards, playing the first one is, I'd say, probably your best bet. So from there, I want to then, my second one was mouth washing.
What?
Now this is a horror game called mouth washing.
Oh, I did hear it right. Okay.
Yes,
That thing you
this is
do
actually,
before bed.
yes, horror game mouth washing. This is actually the most recent of the of my collection. This actually just came out like a month ago.
It's a shame audio can't catch the befuddled face I'm making.
And what we were talking about this earlier of talking about Nintendo's like erring away from like graphical fidelity. This is a throwback to like those old PS1 games. You know, it's 3D, but the character models are like 6 polygons
Okay.
with a roughly human shape. And the entire premise, this one now, where Resident Evil is like about 10 hours, this is a 3-hour experience in and out. And the entire premise is that you are very alien, a bunch of space traders on a year-long mission to deliver an unknown cargo out, just across the galaxy.
This sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it's a classic premise. Whereas
Yeah.
opposed to like Alien's creature feature, the inciting incident is that your captain decided to willingly crash the ship into an asteroid, basically stranding you in the middle of the vacuum of space, and he is and leaving himself, like intending to kill himself, leaving himself alive by the hair of a thread. And it is now up to you as part of the crew to find out why he did this and what you could do to survive and to survive the vacuum of space.
Okay, so what are the kind of the mechanics of this like thing?
Mostly kind of point and click adventure. It's very rudimentary. It's you're just kind of like you're exploring the very, very tight corridors of your spaceship in its ruined state, and just kind of just kind of like opening hatches and finding things and talking to the like three crew members with you, all in the while trying to like kind of peel back the layers of this mystery. And then at about the halfway point, the entire game just jumps headfirst down Dream Logic Avenue into just some absolutely nonsense surrealism. But this is another one I would say if you like horror, particularly like kind of gory horror in the PS1 era, this one well worth it. I think it's like 20 quid. And as I said, if you just want something of an afternoon, 3 hours max.
All right, let's say hypothetically you have a very weak constitution and Five Nights at Freddy's was a bit too much for you. Is this too intense?
This would be too intense.
Okay.
There is a sequence where you feed a man his own leg.
I didn't hear that, but I won't ask for clarity.
Mouth washing.
Okay. I was wondering where the title would come into it.
That is a surprise I will leave to the viewer to find out.
Ugh.
That's yeah. You know what?
Is it too late to talk about my dear friend Nokatan? Do you remember when that was the scariest thing on this podcast?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what?
I know you have another game. I just needed that little pick me up.
Well, actually, kid, I'll throw it to you.
Now business and now grim death. I'm gonna go to bed very sad after this.
Well, here's the thing, kid. I can talk about Signalis, but I don't think we have enough time for me to really get into what I think is actually incredibly masterful about this game before this episode is out. So why don't you bring the tone right back up with what's going on the Nintendo Entertainment System?
Yay! Do you have any idea how many weeks I've wanted to do this? This is like when you have a bad day at school and like your parent takes you for ice cream.
Ian, tell me about video games from the 1980s. Yay!
Hey kid, do you wanna play football? No. Do you wanna watch some TV? No. Do you wanna talk
Do you
about
want to play
video games
golf?
from the 90s? No.
Do you want to play
Okay.
scat?
So yes, to catch people up, because this has been very disjointed now in the last few weeks. We had a good rhythm in August, and then life happened. We have been covering the NES library that is currently available on the Switch in chronological order, and thankfully it has not updated. That would really mess me up. We are 4 lines and a wizard down, because I'm not sure you've the list in front of you, but there's 4 lines of games roughly the same size. And then Will Harvey presents the Immortal, the size of like the Joker 2 poster compared to all the rest of them.
I too make my measurements by how many lions and wizards are involved.
All right, so, but the interesting thing is, even though these aren't in chronological order, just by virtue of covering them, you sort of pick up on trends as time goes on. It started out with like Donkey Kong Jr. and like lots of games about boats because they're just like 1 pixel you can move, and like lots of racing games, similar thing. We are now, Will Harvey Presents the Immortal has blown the doors open. And now there's like games with like scripts and stories and stuff. And no joke, I've got 5 games here. 3 of them involve the apocalypse.
Hell yeah, let's
Like,
do it.
At least one of them has a mushroom cloud on their intro. This is... It's like how everything in the 80s was like overly dark and overly grim, and that's suddenly like infected video games, and it went from snakes racing to like the intro from Terminator. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We are going to cover what are the 5 games from below Will Harvey Presents the Immortal. So the first one is called Rygar. And Rygar is in the sort of weird end of games from the earlier kind of examples we gave, which is you are a guy, you have a little whip thing, You walk around, you hit the monsters, you try not to die. That's as basic as it gets. But
Now, Kean,
it
that the thing about that is that sounds like a Castlevania to me.
it's it's exactly like Castlevania. I won't send you images this time, but it is Castlevania except for the fact that instead of a whip, you have like, do you remember Lord of the Rings, that the Witch King, he had like a thing on a chain,
Oh, flail!
a flail. It's Castlevania with a flail, and instead of vampires, you're hitting poor innocent turtles. And if you travel far enough, an oversized man with a beard will give you a vague quest. But yeah, we're kind of entering a new generation of staples, the sort of hitting things with sticks, swords, whips, which there hasn't been a lot of so far. There's been a lot of like platformers and races and things, but this is kind of new. So even though I didn't love this game, Rygar is sort of like the first of that genre of game. And it's got an equally big poster with Will Harvey Presents the Immortal, so it's easy to find. Overly grim cover art. If you look at the cover art, there's a poor unsuspecting lizard hiding in a tree, while this guy leaps by putting his hand on a poor goblin's head and shreds bats into bits. So, bit grim for a cover art, but the game itself is fun. Then you've got the one I've been dying to talk about, which is Eliminator Boat Duel. Now,
I'm sorry, Kean. Can we get a clean? I want a clean sample. Can you just run that by me one more time?
Eliminator Boat Duel.
Those are three completely non sequitur words.
Okay, well, it gets weirder. Let me tell you this. When you open the game, a hippie heckles you. And I've got the game open in front of me, just so I didn't dream this. The first thing you see when you open this game is a guy with like a headband and like glasses and a big beard and frizzy hair goes, "My groovy guru vibes help my boat skim the waves. So long, unenlightened one."
My groovy guru dude.
Oh, I've got more, and I will do more. But once you get past that, and by the way, he is the only person you race, as far as I can tell. I put a decent amount of time into this, and I have not come across any other passive-aggressive hippies. But I will say, compared to like the earlier boat games, there is some cool mechanics here because you are essentially given a budget and you can decide at the beginning of every race how you spend that budget, whether you want to upgrade the engines or the turning and all that kind of stuff. And like the race has a mix of like 2D and 3D. And if you win, you get more budget to spend. And here's the nastiest thing though. If you try and start your engine before it says 3, 2, 1, go, you are fined at the end of the race. So this is a relatively complex game in the genre of random, endless racing things, of which there are far too many. And you know what? Passive aggressive hippie. What's not to like? Oh yes, here, I'll give you another one. Good karma, novice, but Jupiter is aligned with my Mars, and my vessel and I are now unbeatable. The forces of the universe are in harmony with me.
You know what? I would like to hang out with this groovy guru dude.
Eliminator Boat
like
Duel.
a
It's a
chilled.
fun game. I played it not just for research. If we're ranking these, this one's up there. I'm not sure which time we have left, but then we get into the three apocalyptic ones. So Shadow of the Ninja does what it says on the tin. You pick one of two ninja characters. You are given a vague, well, no, I'm reading it now. Set in the destroyed future of 2029. So
Okay,
count that up. You ain't
so
got
we're
long.
talking future ninja.
Yes. New York has been taken over by mysterious forces, and only you, a ninja, can defeat the evil emperor. Like the
Of
earlier one,
course.
it's just hit things with a sword and try not to die. But it's got like
Because
nice climbing mechanics and all that. I would sincerely recommend this one too. This one's great fun. And you get to and it's got
who
two
else
player.
can
Not a lot of things are two
save
player.
these? Because who else can save these United States of America in the year 2040 than a ninja?
And then the next in our post-apocalyptic chapter of 3, it could be more. I only played 5 because I couldn't take all of the grimness. We have a sort of a Legend of Zelda clone thing set in the destroyed future of 1997. Savage war engulfs the world. Civilization is destroyed. The game opens with ruined buildings on fire. So this is, and they've all moved into like a sort of a Laputa castle in the sky type setup. So this is a weird entry of like the world got so destroyed, it's gone feudal, and you now have to pick up a sword and hit demons with it.
Now,
So
I
like,
think it is important to note, because I'm looking at the listing here as well. This came out in the year 1990, many years after the first Final Fantasy, and after we have had several more. In fact, I think this is maybe 2 years out from 7. On a scale, because you've played a lot more of the Pixel ones than I have. On a scale of like 1 to 5, where's Crystalis sitting?
in terms of quality,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I'm kind of comparing this more to like all the games that have been on the NES so far. Like it's well designed. You can talk to NPCs. You can pick up a sword. It's more like the sort of the Game Boy era, like Legend of Zelda's, where you're like a little square walking around hitting things with a sword. It took me
Okay.
ages to figure out how to start the game, but that's kind of fairly typical of games of the era. So
Yeah, it
I
sounds
didn't
like a
love it,
fantasy
but
game
it
on the
was a
NES.
good game for the NES, like, you know? I was
Okay,
just surprised
okay.
that such a pleasant game, it's such a grim setup. Do we have time for the last one?
We do. Kian, tell me about Journey of Silius.
Oh, you've got the list open. Lovely. Okay. This is the heaviest one. You can open it as well if you like. It has such
But
a
Kian,
nice
the name is
title.
Silius.
Silliest, isn't it silly? I'm going to walk you through the experience of opening this game, if it ever opens. So this is the one I was kind of alluding to, where it's like opens with like, oh, it opens with a city getting nuked. After many years of space colony development, Jay's father has passed away. This is how the game starts.
That's heavy, my groovy dude.
It's like Evangelion. There's a guy standing in a grave. It's like this is a revenge quest. He's given a floppy disk with the essential information to avenge him. And the
Hey,
bizarre
listen, you
thing
got.
is, for all this grim setup, like it is worth opening the game, even if you don't intend to play it, because it's so bizarre seeing such like dark storytelling in this weird kind of goofy animation pixel style. Because once you get through all this, like Evangelion style setup, it's like a goofy, like laser game. They will pay the price for the death of my father. Pew 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 pew. Like it's like the person who made the game and the person who wrote the game didn't understand each other's assignment. Because you get through this like harsh thing, and you're a guy, like a cute pixely looking guy with yellow hair, walking around with a gun, shooting little hopping legs. It's like Scat, except directed by Zack Snyder. It's really bizarre. Like, I'm not sure if you've opened the game, but I'm actually gonna send you like shots of like the intro versus the game itself. And I've never, because you know, it's a typical thing. You see a trailer for a game, you see its intro, it's all cinematic. The game itself is very different. But I've never seen such a stark contrast in terms of tone between one and the other. I almost recommend it just for how bizarre that is. So, what do you make of our? It's a shame we didn't get to these on the Terminator episode. That would have been perfect. But what do you make of this bizarre shift into bleak, grim storytelling compared to the Donkey Kong mats of yesteryear?
I mean, like this again. It's the thing. Like I pointed out, like it looks like most of these kind of came out around. Like most of these are coming out in the NES around 1990. So we were kind of getting into the Nirvana age. And
Yeah,
like
it's
we
like
were probably not long out from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which
it's
is that.
definitely that. It's like it's so like maybe it's because we're very far removed from that decade, which you and I lived through. But like it's like I feel like nowadays, if you were gonna open a game with like nuclear explosions, you'd have to brace a presumed child player for it, you know? Even if it's not especially graphic.
I'm sorry. I'm now stuck. I'm now playing
Are
Journey to
you
Sillius.
playing?
And this. I'm sorry, kid. I can't podcast right now. I'm playing video games. This is, Kian. This is Mega Man. What you've shown me is Mega Man, but with a Terminator 2 intro.
Isn't it bizarre? Like, imagine if you had like I'm trying to think of like a really grim example. Imagine if you had like the intro to like Melancholia or something like that, and then after 20 minutes it turned into Mario. That's the vibe.
Have you ever? Yeah, you're just so you like you're watching Robert Eggers' The Witch, and then suddenly the next thing you know, the Garf, the Super Mario Bros. Movie just starts playing. Garfield kicks down the door. It's just like total whiplash. Absolutely. Well,
I'm excited because we're actually getting some like kind of fun looking ones on the next go around. We have Gradius, although it's called Special Version, which I've now come to fear. Kung Fu Heroes, Vice, Project Doom, the original Donkey Kong 3, Mighty Bomber, and Wrecking Crew. So we're getting into like kind of more things I've heard of. And that seems to be kind of at least the norm for the next while.
and all of that and more awaits you here next week, where you can join us again once more on Nerd to Know basis. But that is going to be the end of our episode this week.
Find out how Karate Heroes will be a Terminator style post-apocalyptic thing. I'm calling it now. I haven't played it.
And listen, maybe I'll talk about Signalis next week. Who's to say? Only you can find out. But what you can do in the meantime is check out all of our social media, check all the links to them through our website, nerdtoknowmedia.com, and also check out our YouTube channel, where episodes are still being uploaded almost daily. There is so many episodes.
Dara's working his heart out.
Dara is working, just cycling that little bicycle, churning episodes out.
Churn that content.
And you can really award him by hitting subscribe on that YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I've been Kev.
And I've been sad.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.